in debates.
Now, we do have Andrew Wallace back with us, but we only have the audio at the moment. I want to get into Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer. He's pumping up his economic record. I've got to say, it's frankly a wild claim that the coalition government would have run up $55.5 billion worth of deficits instead of surpluses. He's told The Australian that if he had banked around 40% of revenue upgrades, the average under the Abbott-Turnbull-Morrison years, his budget would be in the red. But Andrew, I'm not sure it's entirely fair, given you have to take into account COVID-era spending, is it?
Well, Caleb, I just don't think anybody can believe what Jim Chalmers says. I mean, this is the guy that constantly talked about the coalition government allegedly ringing up $1 trillion worth of debt. But we know that that was a bold-faced lie, because it was nothing like that. It was closer to $500 billion. And of course, that is a lot of money, but it's half of what Jim Chalmers went to the last election. In fact, he's even been talking about it since then. But it doesn't take into account the enormous spending that the then coalition government had to do to bring the country out of its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression during COVID. And it was Jim Chalmers that was encouraging us to be putting more money, borrowing more money to put into the economy. So, you know, it's a bit rich for Jim Chalmers to be coming out and saying this now.
Daniel, your response?
Oh, look, what I'd say first and foremost is I think it's really important in these debates about surpluses and deficits just to remember we're not trying to achieve surpluses for their own sake here. They're not an end. Why we're achieving surpluses is to try and put downward pressure on inflation, which is critical to getting to the point where we can see interest rates fall. And I just wanted to say that Michelle Bullock, who appeared in front of the committee that I chair, has reinforced that the surpluses that we're delivering have been helping with that. I think the point with the savings of the uplift is simply to make the point that the surpluses that we've delivered in the first 2 years were on the back of identifying savings, but also banking a very high proportion of the fiscal uplift. And that was responsible economic management. And I think that's the core point that's being made.
Indeed, but Michelle Bullock did also say that high government spending was one of the contributors to inflation. So yes, banking a surplus means that there is less spending, but spending could go down further, I think, is part of the point here as well. In your state, though, Victoria... Sorry, go on, Daniel. You're going to respond there, were you?
No, that was me, Carl.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, in relation to that point of Daniel's, the Labor government wants to kill the goose that laid the golden egg here. It's doing everything it can to drive into the ground the mining and resources sector. Without the mining and resources sector, Australians' quality of life will suffer dramatically. So I think that the benefits that have been bequeathed to Jim Chalmers as Treasurer of this country have in no small part been as a result of the great work of the mining industry. And I just don't know how he or the Labor government expect to be able to continue to provide the sort of services that Australians demand when they do want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg.
Now, two things to get through very quickly here. Daniel, in your state, Victoria, you've been ranked the worst out of all the states when it comes to tackling the housing crisis. The Allen government's refusal to wind back property taxes has seen industry confidence plummet in the sector. It's put to me by people in Victoria who own property that they feel like they are an enemy of the state. Very quickly, Daniel, what's your response to that?
So just on that, I saw some of the commentary around that today. And look, I did see some commentary from the Property Council, for example, in an article that got a bit of coverage. I mean, I'd also say that I agree with commentators, including the Property Council, who say that this is really a supply-side issue. I'd note that the Property Council have also come out and said that it is really important that we get measures in place like build to rent. The Property Council backed in the HAF as a really important supply-side measure. So they've actually been backing the work of the federal government, and it's very frustrating that we have two bills in the Senate stuck with the opposition and the Greens playing political games and stopping measures which I think go right to the heart of this issue.
And quickly before we go, Andrew, there's a Chinese diplomat has warned that the Taiwan question is at the core of Beijing's interest. He said the family reunion is not complete without all family members, including Taiwan. This is South Australia's Consul General Li Dong. He made these comments at a Chinese national dinner that were hosted by Premier Peter Malinauskas. 30 seconds, Andrew. He stood up at a dinner that the states put on for him and told the state how things should go.
Well, and, if he had his way, that the Labor Premier in South Australia and the Prime Minister of this country would be dancing to their tune. But look, I was in Taiwan in April. They are a very important democracy, one of our largest trading partners. Despite their relatively small size, it is imperative that we continue to support Taiwan as a free and open democracy. And I think we need to be pushing back both against the hyperbole of the Chinese government in relation to its desire to want to reunify Taiwan by force if necessary.
Daniel Molino, Andrew Wallace, thank you for persisting and thank you for your time. Well,